Imagine, for just a moment, that you own a factory.
Okay.
And not just any factory. Like, this is a family business. It's put food on your table for decades, put your kids through school, and honestly, it runs like a Swiss watch.
Right, the absolute backbone of your livelihood.
Exactly. But over the years, something bizarre starts happening to the primary machines on your factory floor.
Like they start breaking down.
Well, no, they don't just get old and break down in the traditional sense. They actually start growing.
Wait, growing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. But year after year, your machines just stretch upward toward the ceiling. Eventually, they break right through the roof until they are, the height of a 6-story building.
Oh, wow.
We're talking over 66 feet or roughly 20 meters straight up into the air.
That is, well, it's a terrifying image if you really put yourself in those shoes.
It really is.
Yeah.
You are standing on the ground, and you can barely even reach the controls anymore. The actual mechanical output of these towering machines is just plummeting day by day because they're too stretched out to function properly.
Yeah, the physics of it just stops working.
Right. And here is the absolute kicker. To replace just one of these massive, inefficient machines, you have to completely shut down your factory.
And that's not just a weekend job, I'm guessing.
No, not a weekend, not a month. You have to shut it down with literally zero income for 7 years while the new machine calibrates.
Which is a complete operational paralysis. I mean, you're trapped between a piece of equipment you can no longer safely operate and a replacement cost and downtime that would bankrupt you instantly.
And the wildest part about this whole thought experiment is this isn't some science fiction hypothetical.
No, it's very real.
This is the exact literal reality right now for hundreds of thousands of palm tree farmers in Malaysia. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today, we are taking a massive stack of agricultural research, agronomy reports, and some really highly detailed logistical case studies.
And we're looking at a $3 billion crisis that is just quietly threatening the agricultural backbone of an entire nation.
Yeah. But what's fascinating here is that we aren't just going to diagnose a sprawling macroeconomic disease today, right? We are looking at a highly specific and, frankly, revolutionary cure.
Absolutely. We are looking at a proposed solution from an organization called Ecoladang Microfarms, or EMF.
EMF, right?
Yeah.
And they've designed this incredible 2-part system.
Yeah, they call them agro-parks and agro-shacks. And the goal of this entire system is to take these towering agricultural roadblocks we just talked about and turn them into high-tech, municipal-scale green energy and micro-farming hubs.
It's so cool. So if you are listening to this on your commute or, while you're making dinner, whether you are interested in agronomy or green energy, or you just deeply appreciate brilliant outside-the-box problem solving, this deep dive is going to completely reframe how you view the concept of agricultural waste.
For sure. But if we connect this to the bigger picture first, it is vital to understand the sheer scale of the stakes here.
Yeah, set the stage for us.
Well, this isn't a localized issue affecting a few unlucky farmers. We are looking at a macroeconomic demographic cliff. It's this slow-motion collision involving aging trees, an aging farming population, incredibly strict international environmental regulations, and ultimately national economic security.
So the entire ecosystem is balancing on a knife's edge.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the cure EMF is proposing, we first have to fully diagnose the biology of the machine itself, the oil palm tree.
Right, the Elias guineensis. It's a truly incredible plant, honestly, and arguably one of the most calorically and economically efficient oil-producing crops on the planet.
But it has a catch, right?
A big one. It operates on a very strict, unforgiving biological timeline. These trees have a peak commercial lifespan of about 25 to 30 years.
And as we established with our factory metaphor, when they hit that age, they don't just wither, drop their leaves, and politely die so you can plant a new one.
No, they absolutely do not.
They just keep going up 66 feet into the air. I mean, if you've never stood next to a 25-year-old oil palm, it is monolithic. It looks like a giant concrete pillar with a fern on top.
It really does. And that height creates a cascading series of biological and logistical nightmares.
Walk us through the biology first.
Okay, let's look at the biological standpoint.
Okay.
Think about the pure physics and energy expenditure required to maintain a living organism of that size. As the tree gets taller and taller, it has to pump water and soil nutrients higher and higher up that massive, dense trunk.
Like fighting gravity every single inch of the way.
Precisely. It results in what agronomists call vascular exhaustion. The tree ends up spending almost all of its metabolic energy just maintaining its own vascular system, trying to push life all the way up to the canopy.
So it's basically working overtime just to stay alive.
Right, which means it stops doing the one thing the farmer actually needs it to do, producing fruit. The yield of fresh fruit bunches, or FFB, just begins to drop dramatically.
It just doesn't have the surplus energy to create the fruit anymore.
Exactly. And then you have to confront the physical reality of the harvest itself. I mean, picture this. You have a human being, a farmer, standing on the ground, wielding a heavy sickle attached to a massive 60-foot pole.
Oh, man.
Yeah, craning their neck upward, trying to slice down a heavy bunch of fruit from the canopy.
I can't even imagine the leverage required to control a blade on the end of a 60-foot pole. It sounds incredibly dangerous.
It is. If a 50-pound bunch of spiky fruit falls from 6 stories up, it's lethal. It's physically exhausting, intensely manual labor.
So it becomes an unsustainable equation. The effort goes way up, the danger goes up, and the actual crop yield goes down.
You hit the nail on the head. And it's not just an isolated few trees here and there hitting this wall. The numbers we are looking at in the reports are just staggering.
Give us the scope.
By 2027, an estimated 2 million hectares of Malaysian plantations are going to hit this exact aging demographic cliff simultaneously.
2 million hectares. Let's give that number some context.
That is roughly 35% of the total planted area in the entire country.
Wow.
Yeah, more than a third of the national crop is aging out of commercial viability all at once.
And the capital required just to clear those aging giants and prepare the land.
It's estimated at an overwhelming $3 billion US dollars.
3 billion.
That's over 14 billion Malaysian ringgit, averaging around 20,000 ringgit per hectare just to reset the board.
Okay, here's where the crisis gets highly specific. Because if you're listening to this, you might be thinking, well, the global palm oil industry is a behemoth. It's dominated by massive multinational corporations. Surely they have the capital reserves to afford a $3 billion replanting phase.
Yeah, that is a massive, very common misconception of how the industry actually operates on the ground.
Right. Corporate estates exist, but they aren't the whole picture.
Not at all. While large corporate estates certainly exist, and they do have the capital to manage phased, highly structured replanting cycles, the true burden of this demographic cliff falls disproportionately on the independent smallholders.
The everyday farmers.
Everyday families managing plots of land that range anywhere from 5 to 40 hectares.
And there are roughly 450,000 of these independent farmers. The data shows they account for anywhere from 26% to 40% of the national production.
So they aren't a fringe element at all.
No, they are the absolute backbone of the national supply chain.
And right now, that backbone is completely frozen in place. The national replanting rate in Malaysia is currently hovering at a sluggish 2%.
And what should it be?
Well, agronomists generally agree that to simply maintain a healthy, sustainable national yield just to tread water, the replanting rate needs to be between 4 and 5% annually.
So we are operating at less than half of the required replacement rate.
Exactly.
It makes me think of a city failing to maintain its underground water pipes because digging up the roads is too expensive. You know, you can ignore it for a year, maybe 2, the water pressure drops a little, but eventually the mains start bursting and the whole city loses water pressure.
That's a perfect analogy. Malaysia is facing an agricultural brownout. And meanwhile, neighboring nations like Indonesia are aggressively managing their replanting phases.
So if Malaysia doesn't unfreeze this smallholder paralysis, they risk losing their competitive edge in the global market entirely.
Which triggers a devastating economic domino effect.
Yeah.
You get underutilized processing mills that don't have enough fruit to process, a massive drop in national export revenue, and a severe long-term threat to national economic stability.
So as a listener, you're probably screaming at your device right now. If the trees are dangerously tall, exhausting to harvest, and not even producing fruit, why don't the farmers just cut them down and plant new ones?
It seems so fundamentally obvious, right?
It really does. But that brings us to barrier 1, the replanting trap.
The crux of the issue is that the obvious solution is physically and financially out of reach for a typical smallholder. And the old, cheap way of doing it, that is now highly illegal.
Let's talk about the old way, because I think it explains a lot about how we got here. Historically, if you were a smallholder with a 40-hectare plot of massive exhausted trees, you didn't hire a specialized logistics firm.
No, you just chop the trees down, let the brutal tropical sun dry them out for a bit, and then you would literally set the entire field on fire. Slash and burn.
It was incredibly cheap. It cleared the massive physical obstruction of the trunks quickly, and I guess the resulting ash provided a short-term fertilizer bump for the soil?
It did, but the environmental costs of slash and burn on a national scale is catastrophic.
Oh, absolutely. The regional haze that blankets neighboring countries, the massive concentrated carbon emissions, the total destruction of localized biodiversity, it's completely indefensible in the modern era of global trade.
Exactly. Today, to maintain access to the lucrative global market, farmers must comply with very strict, very tightly monitored environmental regulations.
Specifically, the mandatory Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Scheme, or MSPO, and the European Union Deforestation Regulation, the EUDR.
Right, and these regulations are absolute. They are non-negotiable prerequisites for market access. If you want a buyer for your palm oil anywhere in the developed world, you cannot use open burning to clear your old trees. The market simply will not accept it.
Which forces these small independent farmers into using compliant zero-burn methods.
And zero burn is an incredibly heavy industrial process. I mean, if a farmer has a field of 66-foot trees, they have to physically cut them down. But they can't just leave a giant multi-ton log taking up the exact spatial footprint where they need to plant their new, delicate sapling.
Right, the trunk has to be completely removed or pulverized on site.
And to tear down, chip, shred, and windrow these massive fibrous trunks requires incredibly expensive, specialized, heavy-duty industrial machinery. We're talking excavators with massive shredding attachments.
And for an independent smallholder who is likely living harvest to harvest,
Right.
renting or buying that kind of heavy diesel equipment is financially impossible. The math simply does not work.
It doesn't.
Okay, hold on. I'm thinking about, like, walking through a natural jungle. Trees fall over, they rot, they turn into soil, and life goes on. It's the circle of life.
Sure.
So why is an old palm tree suddenly a crisis just because a human cut it down? Why can't the farmer just fell the trees, leave the massive logs between the rows, and let nature take its course? Shouldn't that rotting wood just turn into free fertilizer over time?
It's a completely logical assumption. But applying the logic of a wild, diverse jungle to a monoculture agricultural environment is a recipe for an agronomic disaster. We have to separate the romantic idea of a forest floor from the biological reality of a commercial plantation.
Walk me through the difference. Why is it so bad?
Well, first, there's the pure geometry of the space. Massive oil palm trunks OPTs and the sprawling fronds left on the ground physically smother the vital planting area. You need clean, accessible soil lines to plant the new saplings and allow their root systems to establish without physical obstruction.
Okay, that makes sense physically.
But the physical space is actually the minor issue. The far greater threat is biological. A field of slowly rotting palm trunks is effectively a biological time bomb.
A time bomb. What exactly is waiting to go off in there?
The most immediate visible threat is the Oryctes rhinoceros, commonly known as the rhinoceros beetle.
Rhinoceros beetle. Sounds like something wearing heavy armor.
It is, and it is relentless. The damp, fibrous, rotting wood of a felled palm trunk is the absolute perfect incubator for their larvae. They breed in staggering numbers inside that decaying biomass.
So you're just building a giant bug hotel?
Basically. And when those beetles mature and emerge, they don't eat the dead wood. They are drawn entirely to the tender, vulnerable apical shoots, the absolute heart of the newly planted palm saplings.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a localized swarm of these beetles will absolutely devour a newly planted field, killing the saplings before they even have a chance to root properly.
So by leaving the old wood, you are literally building a heavily fortified nursery for the exact predator that wants to eat your new crop.
Exactly that. But as destructive as the beetle is, there is an invisible threat in that rotting wood that is even worse, the fungus.
The fungus.
Leaving the waste promotes the explosion of Ganoderma bonens.
Oh, right. Ganoderma bonens. We see this mentioned a lot in the pathology reports. It causes basal stem rot.
Yes, BSR. It is a devastating soil-borne fungal pathogen. It's a type of white rot fungus that specifically attacks the lignin in the wood, rotting the tree from the inside out.
Yikes.
Now, once this fungus establishes a massive stronghold in the dead, rotting trunks on the surface, it spreads its mycelial network deep into the soil. It creates a vast subterranean web of infection that seeks out the root systems of the healthy new crop.
It's like a biological landmine waiting for the roots to touch it.
And the fatality rate is staggering. Agronomic data shows that a severe Ganoderma infection can wipe out up to 60% of a farmer's potential yield over the lifespan of the new replants.
60% of your future income just gone. because the soil itself is deeply infected.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you let the wood rot, you are cultivating a plague of armored beetles and a subterranean fungal network that will essentially assassinate your new trees.
It's a nightmare scenario.
And beyond the immediate destruction of the crop, there's a broader atmospheric factor too, isn't there?
A massive one, yeah. The process of slow anaerobic decomposition, which means the core of those massive trunks is rotting without sufficient exposure to oxygen, acts as a biological reactor that releases huge volumes of methane and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere over several years.
And methane is a significantly more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide in the short term.
Considerably more potent. So if a farmer just leaves the waste to rot, they aren't just risking their own crop, they're generating a concentrated, localized source of severe greenhouse gases. This is why simply leaving it to nature is not an option. The biomass has to be actively removed or processed.
Man. So, to summarize the physical trap here, the land must be cleared for the new crop. The farmer cannot legally burn the trees, they cannot afford the heavy machinery to shred them, and if they leave them to rot, they destroy their future crop and pollute the atmosphere.
They are completely boxed in.
The smallholder's just paralyzed. But here is where the story gets deeply human. Because even if a farmer magically solves that first barrier, say they take out a predatory loan to hire the heavy machinery to clear the land safely, they immediately crash into barrier 2.
Right.
And this is the silent, devastating wall that really paralyzes the industry.
The 7-year dead zone.
The multi-year income drought. Let's walk through the timeline of a palm oil farmer. Because I think people outside of agriculture assume farming is like a factory. You put the raw materials in, and a few weeks later, you get a product.
It couldn't be further from the truth. When a farmer finally manages to plant a new, delicate oil palm sapling into freshly cleared earth, that tree doesn't just start spitting out commercial-grade fruit the following month.
Of course not.
There is a grueling, inflexible biological waiting period. It takes roughly 3 to 7 years before that tree matures enough to produce a yield that is commercially viable for the mills.
3 to 7 years. If you're listening to this, imagine your boss calling you into the office today. They tell you that you still have to come to work every single day, you still have to pay for your commute, you still have to perform all your duties flawlessly, but your next actual paycheck won't be deposited into your bank account until, like, the year 2033.
It's a terrifying prospect.
That is the reality here. For up to 7 years, that cleared land generates zero meaningful revenue.
For the better part of a decade, the primary financial engine of that family is just gone.
We really need to dwell on the practical weight of this. A farm isn't just a business, it's a household. You still have to buy groceries, you still have electricity bills, medical expenses, and school fees for your kids.
And ironically, your expenses on the farm actually increase during this period. You have to buy specialized fertilizers to help the saplings grow. You have to manage weed control so the new trees aren't choked out. But your income stream is completely dry. How does a family survive that?
Do they try to plant other things in the meantime?
Many try to bridge that terrifying gap with what are known as catch crops. They will attempt to plant fast-growing, traditional cover crops, things like maize, watermelons, or bananas, in the empty spaces between the young palm saplings.
Well, that makes sense in theory, right? Use the empty land while the trees grow overhead?
In theory, yes. But the harsh economic reality is that the profit margins on those secondary crops are incredibly thin. Furthermore, a palm farmer is integrated into the palm supply chain. Growing watermelons requires an entirely different set of logistics, different specialized fertilizers, a completely different network of buyers, and highly volatile local market prices.
So it's like suddenly asking a baker to run a butcher shop on the side.
Exactly. Ultimately, these catch crops simply do not generate the volume of revenue required to sustain a modern family's cost of living, let alone fund the heavy maintenance required for the primary palm plantation.
Wow. So let's look at the totality of the burden placed on a single independent farmer. You have to pay a fortune that you don't have to clear land that you are legally forbidden to burn, so you can plant young trees that absolutely will not pay you a living wage for another 7 years.
That is the complete picture of the replanting trap. That multi-year poverty trap is the fundamental structural reason farmers delay replanting.
It's not a lack of education.
Not at all. It's not laziness or a resistance to modernization. It is sheer, desperate economic survival. They will keep harvesting dropping yields from a dangerous 66-foot tree because a tiny income today is infinitely better than zero income tomorrow.
And this localized paralysis, multiplied across 450,000 independent smallholders, is the anchor dragging the national palm oil yield into a terminal decline.
Exactly.
So the entire national system is gridlocked. It is locked up tight until some external force can figure out how to remove both massive points of friction simultaneously.
Yeah.
You have to completely remove the massive upfront capital cost of clearing the land, A&D. You have to somehow magically bridge a 7-year lack of income.
It sounds like an impossible paradox.
It really does.
Which brings us directly to the core of the proposed intervention by Ecoladang microfarms, or EMF. This is where we move from diagnosing the disease to exploring the cure.
Okay, the EMF solution. Let's break this down into its two distinct pillars, because the way they interlock is fascinating. Pillar 1 is what they call their full service in time model. This is frictionless clearing and the creation of the agro-park hubs.
Right. Let's start with the farm level. EMF essentially operates on the premise that a palm farmer shouldn't have to suddenly become an expert in heavy machinery logistics.
Because they're farmers, not demolition experts.
Exactly. The goal is the absolute minimization of friction. The farmer is facing an insurmountable physical and financial obstacle. EMF's model is designed to just absorb that obstacle.
I love the logistics of this. Instead of the farmer trying to source a loan to rent a diesel tractor, they essentially open an app. Think of it like calling a highly specialized rideshare or logistics service, and they request a land clearance.
And they agree to a highly cost-effective and, critically, a subsidizable fee.
And then EMF deploys the cavalry directly into the plantation. And we aren't talking about a fleet of rusty, smoke-belching diesel machines, are we?
No, the technological leap here is vital. EMF deploys a specialized zero-emission fleet. They bring in fully electric tracked excavators to do the heavy felling and heavy-duty electric haulers. The literature specifically points to transport vehicles akin to Tesla semis to move the biomass.
The visual of a sleek electric semi-truck rolling into a rural palm plantation to haul away giant logs is incredibly futuristic.
It's quite a contrast, isn't it?
But why the strict focus on an EV fleet? Why not just use cheaper diesel trucks if the goal is just to move wood?
Well, it comes back to those strict international mandates we discussed earlier, MSPO and EUDR. By utilizing a fully electric fleet from the point of extraction to the point of processing, and by completely avoiding any form of open burning or shredding on site, the entire extraction process remains 100% clean.
So it's about the paper trail, too.
Exactly. It doesn't just meet the MSPO and UDR mandates, it exceeds them. It provides a highly auditable, carbon-neutral chain of custody for the land clearing, which is incredibly valuable on the global market right now.
Okay, so the electric excavators roll in, they safely and efficiently tear down those 66-foot giants, and they load the massive intact trunks and the sprawling fronds into the trailers of these electric semis.
Right.
But this creates a massive geographic question for me. If thousands of farmers are sending hundreds of massive trees every single day, where on earth do you put it all? You can't just build a mountain of dead wood outside of town.
No, you can't. And this is where the macro infrastructure of the EMF model comes into play. The trucks do not transport this biomass to a landfill. They transport it directly to centralized, highly advanced municipal-sized facilities known as agroparks.
Agroparks. Let's define what that actually means in a physical sense.
To understand the agropark, you have to understand the traditional alternative. Historically, local authorities and urban planners often suffer from a severe NMBY complex.
Not in my backyard.
Exactly, especially when it comes to agriculture. They tend to view agricultural processing as dirty, smelly, and industrial, so they isolate it. They push these processing mills far out into rural silos, totally disconnected from modern urban infrastructure, power grids, and logistics networks.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. But the agropark model completely inverts that philosophy.
How so?
It integrates high-tech agricultural biomass processing directly into modern, smart, municipal-level infrastructure. It treats the biomass not as agricultural refuse, but as a municipal utility input, much like a water treatment plant or a power substation.
And the interaction at the gate of this agropark is brilliant. It completely flips the financial narrative for the farmer. Let's walk through the way in, because this is where the trash literally turns into treasure.
The arrival logistics are fully automated. When that heavy-duty electric truck rolls into the agropark, it doesn't have to stop, park, and have a team manually inspect the load. It drives straight over what is called a dynamic drive-on, drive-off weighbridge.
So it's weighed in motion.
Yes. The sophisticated sensors instantly calculate the exact tonnage of the raw, wet biomass, the rotting wood that the truck just brought in from the farm. And the moment that digital weight is registered by the system, a profound financial transaction occurs.
Tell me.
The farmer's digital account tied to that specific delivery is instantly credited.
This is the paradigm shift. They receive a direct revenue share, or verified tradable carbon credits, based purely on the volume of the biomass. EMF is literally paying the farmer for the exact same rotting rubbish that was previously suffocating their land, threatening their new crop with fungus, and paralyzing their financial future.
It is a total conversion of a liability into a liquid asset. The farmer pays a heavily subsidized fee for the clearing service, but they immediately recoup value from the material itself.
That's incredible.
But as an analytical observer, this raises a massive economic question.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to ask. How on earth does the math work for EMF?
Exactly.
How are they extracting enough tangible financial value from 66-foot chunks of dead, disease-prone, rotting wood to pay the farmer, fund a highly expensive fleet of electric semi-trucks, and maintain a state-of-the-art municipal facility? I mean, it sounds like a charity, not a business.
It does sound too good to be true until you look inside the engine room of the agro-park, because they aren't just piling this wood up and setting a match to it.
Let's go inside. This is the core science of the agro-park engine, because this is where agronomy meets advanced chemistry.
The agro-park is not a dump. It is effectively a highly automated industrial-scale biorefinery. The key to the entire economic model lies in the profound chemical potential of the oil palm biomass itself.
What's hiding in the wood?
Extensive research, including deep dive studies from SATREPS, the Science and Technology Research Partnership for Sustainable Development, has consistently shown that this agricultural waste is actually packed with incredible latent value. Specifically, it boasts a biogenic carbon content ranging from roughly 42.7% to a staggering 57.9%.
Okay, let's pause on that number because it's the linchpin of the whole operation. 57.9% biogenic carbon. What does that actually mean to a layman?
It means that over half of the physical mass of that dead tree is pure, stored biological carbon. Think about what a tree does for 25 years. It stands in the tropical sun, absorbing solar radiation, pulling carbon dioxide out of the air, and using photosynthesis to lock that energy into its physical structure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that massive trunk is effectively a giant biological battery of stored solar energy just waiting to be unlocked.
But if you just set it on fire in a field, which is what the slash and burn method does, you lose almost all of that stored value, right? The energy is violently released as heat, and the carbon goes straight back into the atmosphere as thick, polluting smoke.
Exactly, you destroy the battery. So instead of burning it, EMF uses advanced thermochemical conversion to essentially bake the biomass. They use high heat to carefully dismantle the biological battery and capture its components.
Let's break down this thermochemical conversion because the mechanics are fascinating. There are two main technologies highlighted here: agitated bed pyrolysis reactors and subcritical water technologies.
Right.
Let's start with pyrolysis. It sounds like science fiction, but it is a very established, incredibly precise industrial process.
Pyrolysis is the process of heating organic material to extreme temperatures. In the agri-park reactors, they are heating this shredded palm biomass to temperatures between 400 and 800 degrees Celsius.
That is incredibly hot. For context, a pizza oven maxes out around 400 degrees Celsius. 800 degrees is approaching the melting point of brass.
It is extreme heat. But the absolute critical factor of a pyrolysis reactor is that this heating occurs in a completely zero oxygen environment. The chamber is sealed and completely purged of atmospheric oxygen.
Which means fundamentally the wood cannot catch fire.
Exactly. Combustion requires oxygen.
Without it, you can heat a piece of wood to 800 degrees and it will never produce a flame.
Precisely. Because it cannot burn, the intense heat has a completely different physical effect on the wood. Instead of combustion, it causes thermal decomposition. It breaks down the material molecularly.
Fascinating.
Think of it less like a bonfire and more like a molecular disassembly line. The extreme heat acts like a scalpel, violently fracturing the complex chemical bonds of the biomass, the cellulose, the hemicellulose, the lignin, and separating the wood into its core, high-value molecular components.
A molecular disassembly line. I love that visual. And they supplement this dry heat process with something called subcritical water processing.
Yes, this is another brilliant layer of the refinery. Subcritical water processing utilizes water that is put under immense pressure and heated to around 300 degrees Celsius.
Wait, normally water boils at 100 degrees.
Right, but because it is under such high pressure inside the reactor, it cannot transition into steam. It actually remains a liquid.
Liquid water at 300 degrees. That sounds volatile.
It is incredibly reactive. At that temperature and pressure, the dielectric constant of the water drops significantly. In layman's terms, it stops acting like regular water and starts acting like a highly reactive organic solvent.
Oh, I see.
It becomes capable of dissolving and breaking down the stubborn, complex organic structures of the palm biomass rapidly without the need to introduce harsh, expensive, and environmentally toxic chemical acids into the process.
So between the zero oxygen oven and the hyperpressurized solvent water, you are throwing this disease-ridden, pest-infested, rotting trunk into a system that completely deconstructs it at the molecular level.
Exactly.
What actually comes out the other side of this disassembly line?
Yeah.
What are the products that EMF is selling to fund this entire operation?
The process yields three distinct, highly lucrative streams: a gas, a liquid, and a solid.
Let's start with the gas.
The primary energetic output is syngas, which is short for synthetic gas.
What is syngas made of?
It is a highly combustible, energy-dense mixture primarily composed of hydrogen and carbon monoxide stripped directly from the biomass.
And how is that monetized at the agri-park? Do they bottle it up and sell it?
No, they actually use it immediately on site. They route that pressurized syngas directly into massive industrial gas turbines. This generates immense amounts of clean, reliable electricity.
Oh, to power the plant itself.
Exactly. This power is used to run the highly demanding agro-park facility itself, creating a self-sustaining power loop. And the significant excess electricity can be exported back to the national grid or used to power localized microgrids.
Okay, so a massive portion of the dead tree is instantly converted into clean electricity. What about the liquid stream?
The liquid byproduct is known as bio-oil. Through the pyrolysis process, the condensable vapors from the wood are captured and cooled into a dark, energy-dense liquid. Now, raw bio-oil needs refining, but once it is hydrotreated and upgraded, it can be refined into sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, as well as marine-grade green diesel.
And the global demand for sustainable aviation fuel right now is astronomical. Every major airline is desperately trying to source SAF to meet their carbon-neutral pledges, so EMS is tapping right into a premium global commodity market.
Exactly. They are producing jet fuel from rotting palm trees.
That's wild. And finally, you have the solid stream left over at the bottom of the reactor.
Right. Because you baked it without oxygen, the carbon didn't burn away. You were left with biochar and activated carbon.
Let's talk about biochar first, because this loops beautifully back to the farm.
Biochar is a highly porous, incredibly stable form of solid carbon. It looks somewhat like charcoal, but its microscopic structure is vastly different. EMF actually takes a significant portion of this biochar and returns it to the farmer. The farmer works it directly back into the soil of their newly cleared plantation.
And what does it do in the soil? Just sit there?
No, it acts like a microscopic, indestructible sponge. It drastically improves water retention in the soil. It locks in the expensive fertilizers so they don't wash away in the tropical rains.
Right.
And it creates a perfect habitat for beneficial soil microbes, which actively suppresses soil-borne diseases like the Ganoderma fungus we discussed earlier.
Wow, it fights the fungus.
Yes, and crucially, because it is so stable, it actively sequesters that carbon back into the earth for centuries, completing the carbon cycle and healing the depleted plantation soil.
That is brilliant. And what about the activated carbon?
The highest grade solid carbon is refined into activated carbon for the industrial market. Because of its massive internal surface area, it is highly prized for use in high-end municipal water filtration, industrial air scrubbers, and increasingly as a critical precursor material in the manufacturing of advanced batteries and supercapacitors.
I just have to pause and marvel at the sheer elegance of this system. It is a masterpiece of engineering. You take something that historically caused catastrophic fungal disease, that bred swarms of rhinoceros beetles, that emitted massive amounts of methane into the atmosphere as it rotted.
A literal nightmare.
Yeah, you take that literal nightmare, you put it in a zero-oxygen molecular disassembly line, and you extract the core energy of the universe from it. You use the disease-causing waste to power the very grid that runs the facility, to fuel commercial airplanes, to build the batteries of the future, and to heal the soil it came from.
It is the ultimate, realized expression of a circular economy. Nothing is wasted. Everything is elevated to a higher purpose. But if we pull back from the high-tech wizardry of the agropark, we have to remember the human element. We still have a major unresolved problem out in the jungle.
You're absolutely right. The EMF solution part 2. Because while the agropark is humming along, generating syngas, spinning turbines, and brewing jet fuel back out on the plantation, the farmer's just standing in a very clean, very empty field.
Exactly. The land is successfully cleared. The dangerous 66-foot trees are gone. The biological time bomb of the rotting waste has been neutralized.
All good things.
Yes. The farmer even has a small influx of cash from the initial carbon credits, and they've successfully planted their neat rows of new, healthy palm saplings. But the fundamental biological clock hasn't changed.
Right. They're still staring at a field of tiny plants that will not yield a single commercial palm fruit for another 5 to 7 years.
The income drought is still very real. How do they survive the wait?
This is where we introduce the AgroShack Lifeline. And this is honestly my favorite part of the entire EMF logistical master plan because it's so brilliantly simple. And it utilizes the exact same logistics network that we've already established.
It really is elegant.
Think about those sleek electric Tesla semis. They drive out to the farm, load up tons of massive palm trunks, and drive back to the municipal agropark.
No.
But what are they doing on the way to the farm? They're empty, right?
In a traditional model, yes, it would be an empty, inefficient dead leg of the journey. But the EMF model eliminates dead legs. On the exact same trip that they deploy to haul away the rotting palm trunks, their trailers are fully loaded when they arrive at the farm.
They arrive carrying the literal cure for the 7-year dead zone.
They drop off modular, prefabricated micro-farming units directly onto the newly cleared empty spaces between the young palm saplings. These specialized units are called AgroShacks.
And the arrival of these shacks changes the farmer's financial paradigm entirely. Instantly, overnight, they are no longer just a struggling palm oil farmer waiting half a decade for trees to grow. They immediately transition into a highly profitable landowner and franchisee.
The business model is a masterstroke. The farmer hosts a cluster of these AgroShacks on their land. They provide the space and the oversight. And while their primary crop, the new palm saplings, quietly takes root and grows in the background over the next 7 years, the farmer earns an immediate, diversified, and highly stable income operating these high-turnover microfarms.
It completely bridges that income drought. They go from staring at 7 years of zero income to managing a high-tech agricultural nexus literally the next morning.
But we have to be analytical here. This is where the deep integration of the two EMF pillars really proves its worth. Because history is littered with failed agricultural interventions.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just drop a standalone fancy plastic greenhouse in the middle of a remote jungle plantation and expect it to magically produce wealth. A high-tech microfarm needs constant, reliable power for climate control. It needs data connectivity. It needs a massive supply of clean water and specialized nutrients.
And most importantly, it needs a reliable supply chain to get the delicate products to market before they spoil.
Right.
Yes, the reports specifically call out this silo mentality as the primary reason most rural agricultural initiatives fail. They build the farm, but they forget the infrastructure. So if these AgroShacks are sitting in the middle of a remote palm plantation, miles from the nearest municipal power grid, how are they powered?
They are powered by the problem they just solved.
Wait, really?
This is the breathtaking beauty of the closed-loop system. The AgroShacks are powered directly by off-grid, localized, renewable electricity. And where does that electricity come from? It is generated by the syngas turbines back at the agropark, transmitted via microgrids, or stored in advanced batteries that are delivered alongside the shacks.
Oh my God, so the physical waste from their old dead trees is quite literally keeping the lights on, running the air conditioning, and pumping the water in their new microfarms.
Exactly.
Okay, let's open the door and look inside these AgroShacks, because what is happening inside is not just a single crop of tomatoes. It is a masterclass in establishing a biological closed-loop ecosystem. It is designed so that every single byproduct becomes the vital input for the next stage. Everything feeds everything else.
It is a heavily engineered, multi-layered food web. The foundational crop, the first layer inside these AI-managed, perfectly climate-controlled units, is high-value fungi. We are talking about premium gourmet and medicinal mushrooms, species like shiitake, oyster mushrooms, and potentially even higher-end medicinal varieties.
Why mushrooms is the base layer?
Because they grow incredibly rapidly, they thrive in controlled, high-humidity environments, and crucially, they command a fantastic profit margin in urban markets.
And the system goes a step further to maximize that margin. EMF provides specialized vacuum frying technology right there on site. So instead of just selling highly perishable raw mushrooms, the farmer can process them into shelf-stable, premium crispy mushroom snacks before they even leave the farm, drastically increasing the retail value.
It's a value addition at the source.
But growing mushrooms at that scale creates a massive byproduct, right?
Yeah.
The spent organic substrate that the mushrooms grow on, what happens to all that waste?
In a normal farm, that would be a disposal cost. In the AgriShack ecosystem, that spent mushroom waste becomes the free primary food source for the absolute powerhouse of the next layer, insect farming.
Insects.
Specifically the cultivation of the black soldier fly, or BSF.
The black soldier fly, truly the unsung hero of global waste management. For those who aren't familiar, why is this specific fly so important?
The black soldier fly is a biological marvel. In their larval stage, they are arguably the most voracious, efficient eaters on the planet. They can consume nearly any organic matter, and they do it at an astonishing speed. They consume the spent mushroom substrate, and through their own rapid growth, they bioconvert that low-value agricultural waste into incredibly high-quality, fat and protein-dense insect biomass.
They turn trash into high-grade protein.
Exactly. And they do it at essentially zero cost to the farmer, because the feed is just the waste from the first layer.
And that zero-cost, hyperdense protein meal doesn't go to waste. It is immediately funneled to feed the third layer of the ecosystem, the livestock.
Correct. The AgriShacks are designed to house the ethical, humane, and climate-controlled cultivation of specific avian and lagomorph species.
Basically birds and bunnies.
Yes, we are talking about free-range, high-demand heritage poultry like the prize kampong chickens in Malaysia and commercial meat rabbits.
And the economics of raising poultry are usually heavily dragged down by the massive overhead cost of importing commercial feed.
Exactly. Feed is the biggest expense in animal husbandry. But because the farmer is providing a nutrient-rich, completely free diet of black soldier fly larvae, they completely bypass the commercial feed industry. Their overhead drops to near zero, while they're producing premium, ethically raised protein.
The system designs even detail the integration of advanced aquaculture. We were talking about high-density vertical farming of premium aquatic species. Fish like tilapia, or even incredibly high-value luxury species like mud crabs and the highly prized impuro fish, all grown in sophisticated recirculating aquaculture systems, or RAS.
It's incredibly diverse.
And what are these premium fish and crabs eating? They're also eating the zero-cost insect protein generated by the flies.
The cascade of value just keeps continuing, but of course raising dense populations of fish, rabbits, and chickens generates its own byproduct. The animal waste and specifically the nutrient-rich wastewater from the aquaculture tanks and the rabbit enclosures.
Which, again, in a traditional system is a massive environmental liability. You have to pay to treat it or risk polluting local waterways.
But in the AgriShack, that wastewater is gold. It is carefully filtered, biologically treated to convert the ammonia into usable nitrates, and then routed to nourish the final layer high-density vertical hydroponic and aeroponic farming systems.
So the water from the fish tanks literally feeds the plants.
Yes, aquaponics. They use this rich, organic, liquid fertilizer to grow highly sought-after, pesticide-free leafy greens, specialized culinary herbs, and even high-value medicinal Chinese herbs. The plants clean the water by absorbing the nutrients, and the clean water is recirculated back to the fish tanks.
Okay, we need to trace this entire mind-bending pathway from start to finish. A massive, dangerously tall, dying palm tree is cut down. It is driven to a municipal park and baked without oxygen to create clean electricity.
Right.
That electricity is beamed back to the farm to power an air-conditioned shack. Inside that shack, premium mushrooms grow. The trash from the mushrooms is eaten by fly larvae. The fly larvae are eaten by heritage chickens and luxury mud crabs. The dirty water from the crabs is used to fertilize high-end organic lettuce.
It's all connected.
And all of it, every single drop of water, every degree of temperature, is monitored and optimized by localized artificial intelligence servers, what EMF calls the sovereign agro-intelligence nodes, or SAIN.
It is a flawlessly orchestrated biological machine, and the logistics network closes the loop perfectly. When those premium vacuum-fried mushrooms, those heritage chickens, and that organic lettuce are ready for market, the exact same zero-emission electric trucks that hauled away the dead wood return to the farm.
Oh, to pick up the produce.
But this time they are equipped as cold chain transports. They load up the high-value goods and transport them directly to premium urban supermarkets and restaurants. It is an automated, end-to-end, farm-to-table fulfillment network.
It is genuinely breathtaking. The smallholder farmer isn't just surviving the 7-year dead zone, they are actively thriving. They have been elevated from manual laborers into the managers of a highly diversified, technologically advanced, closed-loop microeconomy.
Which leads us perfectly to the final perspective we need to explore today. Let's pull back the lens one last time and look at the macro impact. What happens when you scale this incredibly elegant solution across the 450,000 independent smallholders struggling across Malaysia?
This is where we talk about realizing Malaysia's green wealth. Because an initiative of this scale, involving municipal infrastructure and national logistics, cannot operate in a vacuum. It requires immense institutional alignment.
And it has it. The EMF initiative is not a rogue startup project. It is explicitly, intricately aligned with the Malaysian government's strategic vision. Specifically, the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities National Biomass Action Plan, running from 2023 to 2030.
So the government is completely on board.
The government has fundamentally shifted its perspective. They no longer view this aging biomass as a crisis to be managed. They have recognized it as a highly strategic national asset.
And the economic targets laid out in that action plan are massive. By solving this localized replanting crisis through the agropark biomass utilization model, the national government is targeting the generation of 17 billion ringgit in new circular economic value.
17 billion.
Yeah. They are projecting the creation of over 33,000 high-value, highly skilled green jobs. And from a global environmental standpoint, they aim to reduce national greenhouse gas emissions by an astonishing 30 million tons of CO2 equivalent by the year 2030.
Those numbers represent a fundamental tectonic shift in the national economy. It is the transition from a purely extractive agricultural model to a generative, circular bioeconomy. But beyond the staggering macroeconomics, there is a profound, deeply necessary social impact here. We have to talk about human capital and the sociology of farming.
Yes, the rural brain drain. It is a massive, quiet crisis globally, not just in Malaysia. If you grow up in a rural agricultural community and your entire childhood consists of watching your parents perform back-breaking, dangerous, manual labor like swinging a heavy sickle on a 60-foot pole, praying a 50-pound spiky fruit doesn't crush them, all for a diminishing paycheck, you don't want to be a farmer.
No, you view farming as a dead end.
Right. So the brightest, most ambitious young people inevitably migrate to the major cities to find tech jobs or engineering work or positions in finance. This leaves the vital agricultural sector with a rapidly aging, diminishing workforce that cannot sustain the industry.
It is an existential threat to food security, but the deployment of the agroparks and the agroshacks changes that narrative entirely. It fundamentally rebrands what it means to work in agriculture, because these aren't just farms in the traditional sense.
They're essentially tech hubs.
The EMF infrastructure is designed to double as educational centers. They integrate technical and vocational education and training hubs, commonly known as TVETs, directly into the facilities.
So these high-tech biomass parks and microfarms act as localized apprenticeship centers.
Exactly. They are actively, aggressively reversing the rural brain drain by bringing the high-tech jobs directly to the communities that need them. They are teaching the local youth the skills of the future economy right in their hometowns.
That's huge.
These young men and women aren't learning how to swing a sickle or drive a diesel tractor. They are learning how to maintain and repair a cutting-edge fleet of heavy electric vehicles. They are being trained in advanced electrical and thermal engineering to manage and optimize the Syncus turbines and the pyrolysis reactors. They are learning network engineering to operate the edge AI data servers, the Asane nodes that control the microfarms. They are engineering advanced fluid dynamics for the aeroponic systems.
It creates sustainable generational wealth, and it keeps high-end, ambitious talent anchored in rural areas. It essentially makes farming cool again. Because you aren't just a farmer anymore, you are a data analyst, you are an agritech operator, you are a biological systems engineer.
And in doing so, you are ensuring the bedrock of national food security, while simultaneously catapulting Malaysia's position as a dominant, sustainable leader in the global palm oil market. The sheer poetry of the system is that it takes an agricultural network that is teetering on the absolute brink of total collapse, and it uses the exact physical cause of that collapse, the millions of tons of aging, overgrown biomass, to fuel an unprecedented technological and economic renaissance.
Okay, we've covered an absolutely massive amount of ground today, from the heights of a jungle canopy to the interior of a zero-oxygen reactor. Let's do a quick, energetic recap to tie it all together.
Sounds good.
We started with a terrifying visual. A towering, dangerous 25-year-old palm tree that was quite literally acting as a prison, trapping an independent smallholder farmer in poverty. They couldn't legally burn it, they couldn't afford the machinery to shred it, and if they let it rot in the field, it would unleash a localized plague of armor-plated beetles and a subterranean fungal network that would destroy their future.
And even if they miraculously managed to clear that land, they faced a devastating, unyielding 7-year biological drought of zero income while waiting for their new crop to mature. A true, inescapable demographic and economic cliff.
But then, we explored the interlocking brilliance of the Ecoladang microfarms solution. The sleek, electric Tesla semis rolling into the jungle, hauling the massive waste away and instantly crediting the farmer's digital account. The massive municipal-scale agroparks acting as molecular disassembly lines, baking that waste in zero-oxygen pyrolysis chambers to extract its core value, generating clean electricity, aviation fuel, and soil-healing biochar.
And the brilliant final piece of the puzzle, the agroshacks. The modular AI-controlled microfarms dropped off on the newly cleared land, instantly transforming a struggling farmer into a diversified franchisee. A perfectly balanced, closed-loop biological engine of premium mushrooms, insect protein, heritage poultry, and high-end hydroponics that entirely bridges that 7-year financial gap, all powered by the physical waste of the dying plantation.
It is an absolute masterclass in systems thinking and circular economics. And it brings us to a final thought, a perspective shift, that I think applies far beyond the jungles of Malaysia.
It is a concept I would highly encourage everyone to mull over. For centuries, traditional agriculture, and really global industry as a whole, has viewed waste and waiting periods as inevitable, unavoidable financial losses. We view waste as a liability, things to be buried in landfills, burned into the atmosphere, or simply endured.
Yeah.
But the EMF model proves something deeply radical. It proves that the physical waste and the decay from a dying, inefficient system is not a liability. It is literally the highly concentrated energetic fuel required to build and power a completely new, diversified, and vastly superior microeconomy.
The disease itself is the energetic precursor to the cure.
Exactly. So the question we should all be asking is, how might we apply this exact rigorous circular logic to other dying or inefficient industries around the world? What other massive dead zones in our modern economy, whether it's sprawling, abandoned suburban shopping malls, decommissioned coal power plants, or aging, obsolete municipal transit fleets, are actually just incredibly energy-dense blank canvases, simply waiting for the right infrastructure to unlock them? If we fundamentally stop looking at waste as a burden and start treating it as an energetic precursor, what else could we completely reinvent?
I absolutely love that framework. Think about your own industry, your own neighborhood, or even your own business. What is your 66-foot overgrown palm tree, and what kind of municipal reactor do you need to build to bake it into electricity? Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Always look for the hidden molecular value in the waste, and we'll catch you on the next one.